Good evening or morning or wherever in the world you are, whatever season of the day it is. Welcome to this edition of the Aperitif concerts, sponsored by, run by Tesoro, which is an international network of women poets. I say the same thing every week. I say we are so lucky, we are so blessed, and that's because we are to have this artist on with us today. I have met this woman now twice in person, I think. But I saw her on an open mic that I had not intended to participate in. I was bored. I was looking for something to do. I'm scrolling. I'm looking for an open mic. I'm like, oh, okay, here's a woman poet. Let me go and, support the home team as such. And I sat there and I listened and I fell in love with everything you were saying. It was unbelievable. I will not bother to give you guys her bio because we've all read War and Peace. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I will now turn the mic over to Leonora Simonovis. Leonora, sweetheart, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. It's a good way to spend the rest of my afternoon after a busy week and spending time with first-year college students. Yeah. So my name is Leonora Simonovis. I use she, her, ella pronouns. I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela, but I also lived in the United States as a child and then went back and came back. Have lived all over the United States. And I'm a poet, a writer, an educator, a mother. I live in San Diego, California. I teach courses in Spanish at the University of San Diego, creative writing, history of Latin America. I also teach literature in English and writing. And I've been also teaching workshops here and there for Hugo House, Poetry Foundation, and other places. I have an MFA from Antioch University and a PhD from Washington University in St. Louis. And my work has appeared in different places, the Rumpus, Tinderbox Poetry Journal, Diary Poetry Journal, more recently Rivermouth Review, and I also have some work forthcoming this summer from DMQ Review. Is the weirdest poem I've ever written. I'm kind of surprised I got picked up, but hey, I won't complain. After all the rejections, I'm good. I am working on a second manuscript. It's kind of up in the air, trying to figure out where to go. My first manuscript, Study of the Raft, came out in 2021. It won the Colorado Prize for Poetry and received honorable mention for the International Latino Book Awards in 2022. So it's my little book, and I'll be reading from the book tonight as well. I think that's it. I'm trying to imagine my written bio. It's like, am I missing anything?
If you did, we'll come back and you can fill in the blanks. So I will ask you the question that I ask everybody at the top of these interviews, and you can interpret it however it is you want to interpret it. Why poetry and why now?
So I came to poetry at an early age. I think my mother always recited poems, and she learned them, memorized them. She had to do it for school, but then as she got older, she would just do it and recite them to us. I think it was a way to calm us down when we were fighting or being too rough. But she also used to sing, and there's this type of musical genre in Latin America, boleros. It's a romantic genre, and she used to sing those songs, and they were very poetic, very lyrical. So I've been listening to poems from an early age, and then when I was 5, probably, she gave me this Cancionero. It's a poetry book for kids by Federico Garcia Lorca, the Spanish poet. And I still have that book. I take it everywhere with me. It sort of marked the beginning of my interest in poetry. mostly because it was his poems were so musical, and I'm very sound oriented. And so that's where I feel like my love for poetry started. And I read it, throughout childhood, adolescence. I wrote here and there. I was never encouraged to write. So I think that at some point I realized this is what I want to do. And poetry, what I love about poetry is that it allows you to play with language, which is something I really love to do. There are rules, but it's not like in fiction where you actually have to come up with characters, a narrative, all this stuff. You write and then you edit and revise, and it could be quirky, it could be weird, it could be whatever you want it to be, and it still sends a message. It's also experiential, and I really love that about poetry, that you have to be able to connect in a way that is not the same when you read fiction or nonfiction. So why now? Because I think we're in a kind of a weird time where the world is so convoluted. It's hard to make sense of things. So I think that's my way of digging into what's happening nowadays and trying to make sense, and also trying to find ways to connect with other people who might be going through similar things and to relate.
You said that your mother sang, and one of the things that I've been saying for years is that the line between poetry and music is artificial.
Mhm.
Is that where you are? Do you have a different thought on that? What do you think?
I do think it's artificial. I mean, I remember when I began to study poetry in school, it wasn't fun. But the one thing that stayed with me was that a lot of the, first poems were sung in front of a big audience, and they became books later that were published and that we still read today. And oral tradition is huge in my culture. So the idea that you don't necessarily have to write to be able to be a poet, basically. Like we do it, of course, and we publish and we do all these things, but the way I came into poetry was through oral culture. And I think that music was also a huge part of it. I mean, I grew up in the aftermath of the Cuban Revolution. So a lot of the songs that we heard in Latin America at that time were social justice oriented. They were protesting all the injustices that were being committed. And then, the Nicaraguan Revolution, and then, all the other Latin American countries were still kind of hung up on communism. Is it good? Is it not? But trying to transition into democracy. So the music also became a way to understand our history, which is kind of a huge part of my writing, and to create a sense of unity within like all the Latin American countries.
Now, you talked about, the various revolutions, and how that sort of spurred things. It's
Mhm.
kind of woven into your history. What about the political scene today? Does that still feed into what it is that you do, or have you gone off into another direction?
Yeah. Well, my whole book is very political. I mean, it's basically I am contending with my own exile and the why and the consequences of it. Not the why I left, but the why I can't go back, and what that means for me, what that means for my family, which is all over the world, and what it means to lose, you know, to lose your home as you knew it, how that has changed and transformed, and also what it means when you lose your home. You also lose part of your culture, you lose part of your language. I mean, Spanish is my first language, but I am forgetting things. Sometimes I hear family members talking like on the phone or something, and they say a word and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that word existed. And I know what it means, but it takes me a little bit to kind of understand the context. And so when you lose that, you also lose a part of yourself and your identity is kind of shifting. And that is all connected to the politics. I mean, I don't know if I would have left if the political situation was different. But my initial plan was to come to the United States to do my graduate studies and then go back. And then at some point I was like, I can't, you know. Also, my one of our cousins was a political prisoner for 15 years. And so our last name, because it's not very common, was sort of, you know, when I went to visit, for example, they would look at my passport and be like, oh, you're related to this person, so you're against the government. So what are you doing here? So I would get, you know, an interrogation about it. And I didn't even know, I had nothing to do with it, but it became dangerous. So it does, especially in the first book, it does connect to that. And what I'm doing now is still political, but in a different way. It's more of how do I connect to the landscapes of this place where I live, which are so different from the place that I left, and how that informs my whole identity. Like the landscapes that I grew up with are disappearing. How does that shift my identity and my own history?
When you're writing
Mm-hmm.
/ singing, okay, are you one of those folks who needs a trigger? Do you, write when lightning strikes? Do you sit down, and say, I'm going to write from, 12 to 4 every single day? What's the process?
Oh, it's changed with the years. I used to think that I had to write every day. I can't. I don't have the time either. So I can journal every day and just like, but it's just a brain dump. You know, what's happening, it's a rant. I do try to write a line or two here and there, not every day, but most days. If I don't do that, I try to revise a poem, read a poem. So writing goes beyond the act of sitting down and writing. I might be thinking, about how to revise a poem, or maybe there's an opportunity for a grant or for something else. Okay, so how do I put this together? So like my writing has become this like little monster where everything is writing. But my process is usually triggered by something, either something I heard, something I read, or a prompt that I saw somewhere or that someone gave me. And I usually generate a draft, and then I have to let it go for a while, probably 2-3 days, if not more, depending on the poem. There are poems that I can go back to the next day and I have it. And so I start revising. Some I'm not ready for. And I've gone a year or two sometimes without looking at a poem. And then I look at it and I understand, oh, this is what I was trying to do. This is what I was trying to say. Now I can get back to it. But lately I've realized that I need to be intentional about creating time to write or to be with my writing, because if I don't do it, no one's going to do it for me. And, I have children and I have a job and I have all these things going on. So I have been putting it in the calendar, and it's like maybe 15-20 minutes. But those 15-20 minutes are, I'm just doing this, I'm writing, or I'm revising, or I'm submitting. And that's sacred. That time does not get interrupted. I don't do anything else.
So now that the world has opened up a little bit, are you out and about with performance, or are you still mainly online, or where can folks find you these days besides in the classroom?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I've been doing, I still do some online readings, especially the ones that are across the country. Some organizations are still open to that. And because they bring poets from all over the country and the world, then, they always do them on Zoom. But I sometimes do readings in LA. I have a reading next week in person at Verbatim Books in North Park in San Diego. With a couple of friends. We are celebrating the launch of my friend Donna Spruitt-Smet's new book. And we're going to have a little conversation at the end, so it should be fun. But yeah, I'm trying to do some events in person. And when I can, if it's possible to travel, I'm happy to go somewhere, and depending on funds too, go somewhere and do readings with poets from other places, because I like meeting people and connecting. I'll be at AWP as well in 2 weeks in Seattle, the Association for Writers and Writing Programs conference. And I have a panel there. I have a couple of readings. So I'm looking forward to that and to seeing friends I haven't seen in a long time. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
So I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Okay.
So that we can, it's fine for me to sit here and talk to folks about how brilliant you are, but I think they need to hear it for themselves. So take it away, honey.
All right. So I'm going to look at the time so I don't, okay.
You're fine.
So I'm going to start. I was thinking about, because I was doing this today, and I was also doing another interview talking about my writing process, thinking about my older poems and how I came to write and what those look like and how they have changed. So I'm going to read, let's see, 3 poems. They are bilingual. So I'm going to read both the English and then the Spanish. They were translated by Marja Paulino, wonderful, wonderful translator who lives here in San Diego. I usually translate my poems, but sometimes it's great to see how someone else does it and how that changes the way that I see myself in the writing. So this first poem is called Prayer for My Future Self. Give me the strength to resist my unnaming, the will to move my hips in the 4 directions of the wind, like Anacaona and Oshun and all the others before them. Help me resist the words aimed to break me, perils that are made of flesh and cannot be undone. Let my tears carve a path under a waxing moon, my ears be the instruments of song. Protect me from the eyes of others. Teach me to gaze into my own. And this is the Spanish version. Oración para mi yo futuro. Dame la fuerza para resistir mi anonimato, la voluntad para mover mis caderas en las 4 direcciones del viento, como Anacaona y Oshun y todos los que les antecedieron. Ayúdame a resistir las palabras apuntadas para romperme. Las perlas están hechas de carne y no se pueden deshacer. Deja que mis lágrimas tracen el camino bajo la luna encerada y mis oídos sean instrumentos de una canción. Protégeme de los ojos de otros, enséñame a mirar dentro de mí. The second poem is Instructions to Self. Write your name backwards in the mirror, then kiss it. Glue your body to someone else's, hitch your skirt high. Let them see the underside of tomorrow. Tie your shirt above your belly button. Remind them where you came from, the canela in your skin, even if they think you brown sugar burnt to bitterness. Instrucciones a sí misma. Escribe tu nombre al revés en el espejo y bésalo. Pega tu cuerpo a otra persona, súbete la falda, permíteles ver el lado oscuro del mañana. Faja tu playera por encima del ombligo. Recuérdales tus orígenes, la canela de tu piel, incluso si ellos creen que tú, azúcar morena, se quemó hasta la amargura. And this last one is a little different from the other two. It goes towards childhood. A girl sees a body on the sidewalk. Her mother told her not to look, but she did. A dirty sheet half covered a body. Police officers stood chatting like at Aunt Petra's funeral, where everyone told jokes, drank hot chocolate, and ate pan dulce. The girl says she wants to look underneath the sheet. She's seen the zombie shows her older brother watches. Her mother makes the sign of the cross, kisses the crucifix on her necklace, wishes she could drive away, but traffic in Caracas, so she mutters Hail Mary full of grace, asks the girl to join her. The girl stares at the body, willing the sheet to slide. She asks her mother if a dead person can rise. The cars ahead begin to move. Una niña ve un cuerpo en la acera. Su madre le dijo que no viera, pero lo hizo. Una sábana sucia cubría a medias un cuerpo. Policías hablando de pie, como en el funeral de la tía Petra, donde todos contaban chistes, bebían chocolate caliente y comían pan dulce. La niña dice que quiere ver debajo de la sábana. Ha visto los programas de zombies que su hermano mayor ve. Su madre hace la señal de la cruz y besa el crucifijo en su cuello. Desearía poder irse, pero así es el tráfico en Caracas. Murmura Salve María, llena eres de gracia. Le pide a la niña que se una. La niña mira el cuerpo esperando que la sábana resbale. Le pregunta a su madre si un muerto puede levantarse. Los autos comienzan a moverse. So, my mother and I have or share the same name, which is beautiful in a way, but it was also very awkward, especially when people in the family or friends were trying to call us, and we also have the same nickname, which is Leo. And so sometimes I would sign Leo, and then someone who would respond to me would call me Leonora. You know, they wouldn't, because that was my mother's nickname. So I wrote this poem thinking about that relationship, complicated relationship between mothers and daughters, and how having the same name makes it even more complicated and a little weird. This is Incantation. 1. I've been called by many names, none of them mine, all of them mine. Once a man tried to say my name so many times I started to fade. I am not who he wanted me to be. 2. My mother said hummingbird, azalea, mar. My father renamed my mother in me. 3. 7 letters I share with my mother. She wants to be me, is me, leave or take a letter or two. Between each letter, a crack where silence means conquest. The mother tongue. She says, I mean. We divide and conquer one another, turn our name inside out, suck on the letters slowly. So the next poems that I'm going to read are from my book, Study of the Rhapsody. It's like a little blurry, but and in this book, I also address the mother relationship, mother-daughter, but also grandmother, great-grandmother, so all the women in the family, and what it means to be a woman in a society that doesn't really value your contributions, doesn't really value you as a person. But how, for me, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother were the ones who made it possible for me to be here, who made it possible for me to tell my stories, to raise my voice, to speak up for what I believed in. So this is maps. In the beginning, we were yellow, brown, blue, black stalks, teeth clattering for wind, ground with mortar and pestle, scattered into ocean. No snake in this story, no body to tempt and exile. On the seventh day, the rivers bruised like drumskin. We are children of corn and fish bones, cleaved by starlight and spit, thousands of years tall and still unnamed. Our homes taken, we dream the pestle as mortar. Our mothers hip carry the embers of dawn, their hands yield the sweetest dough, cradle our faces, brush crumbs off our lips. We eat so we remember how bodies are sharpened, wrought. We rinse stories out of the sea that was river. They shapeshift into kernels, rewrite themselves in orbit. For a moment, words hover at the edge of consciousness. For a moment, we are a sketch of our own making. And this poem has a companion, which is legends. It begins with an epigraph. Guaraira Repano is the indigenous name of the mountain that surrounds the valley of Caracas. 1857, renamed Avila, the mountain embraces the city growing on its hem, nursing it to life. Caracas, whoever summits the highest peak claims it. Boundaries, stones scattered over the early treads of tapers. Gazing through a piece of X-ray film, we remember the story of a conquistador to be sacrificed. History, he predicted a solar eclipse. The Mayas offered his heart to the sun. This is not taught in school. School, abuelas counting beads on a rosary, praying their nietos remember a shell is also a body. Remember, they serve coffee in tiny plastic cups, con leche marrón, guayoyo, negrito, guarapo. Tongue, one sip scorching the tip, that space where words are forgotten and recovered. Words, salvaged, domesticated, skewed, unraveled, the aftertaste of something familiar. Familiar, a skyline, a mountain, a city resting against green. Up close, the sounds of ripping seams. Seams. Every decade, foundations waver. A tooth fall and speech lisps. The tongue shifts into bone. Bone. Underneath layers of sediment, jaguar, snake, mother of peril, the forgotten name of the ocean. All right, so I'm gonna switch gears here. And I'm gonna read a few poems that are connected to the situation in Venezuela. So I was inspired mostly by the oral accounts from my family who were going through a lot. You know, there was food shortages. The hospitals didn't have all the resources to see people. Even my mother had cancer. She passed away during the pandemic, and you know, they were struggling to be able to find the treatments that she needed. So I'm going to read 3 or 4 poems that are connected to this idea of revolution. Arabian Nights Remix, Caracas, February 4, 1992. Tonight, a commander in olive uniform declares war against the background of a TV studio. Now and forever, this revolution will be recorded in the annals of history. My mother's foot softly taps on the floor, and for a moment, the camera wobbles. But the commander doesn't seem to notice. I clutch my copy of Arabian Nights, the cover scabbed and peeling, trace the outlines of dome palaces and flying carpets half-heartedly colored by the book's previous owners. Everyone believes a silver tongue, says one character after listening to Scheherazade lull the Sultan to sleep. The commander calls everyone to arms. Justice will come swiftly to those who oppose us. I consider my parents' warnings. If we don't come home, someone will keep you safe. Their faces flickering in and out of view in the bluish light of the screen, while between the pages, a woman gets to live another day. This is gospel. And if we were in person, I would have you respond, but it's okay. This is after one shot's brought in town. This is a video that went viral about the violence in Caracas, and the government tried to shut it down, but it was too late. So it's still findable on YouTube. Bullet drops spit on the bus's plastic windows, clothes glued to skin, bodies steam in the aisle, green uniforms and red berets on every corner. In this city, we walk with those already gone, transformed in the red cocoon of a failed revolution. The river's overflow drags pieces of tin roofs, a door, a diaper, food wrappers. 200 murders this week, reads a headline. We march to honor the fallen, students, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters, bodies piling at the morgue, untagged, unclaimed, unbagged, and bound to a trigger. Murder as prayer and redemption. Why can I have what they have, says a prisoner when asked about his activities. At the bus station, street vendors sell 30-centimeter statues of former criminals. Heroes? So when a child takes a life, they know they'll always be forgiven. Mozart in the 21st century. He plays the national anthem on his violin while people cradle a yellow, blue, and red flag. 7 white stars drop from the fringe. They sing Gloria al Bravo Pueblo, arms in the air, mouths shaped like the tip of a gun. The O in Pueblo barrels with such force, 10 police officers surround the boy. What was he, 18, 19? And yank his violin away. That bow is a weapon, says one. Sing with us, the boy says. Ustedes son pueblo también. Their loyalty is out of tune with their uniforms. The boy in a cell, his fingers broken. Outside, the crowd swells like his bruised jaw, their song unstoppable. Once he heard them through the ringing in his ears. Once they surrounded his city, a memory in black and white. Once he strung a melody on the echoes of thunder. This is Venezuelan mosaic. 1. The line running out the makeshift market a mile long, each person's hunger a number on sunburned skin. 2. Inside the market, 2 women roll on the ground, pull at each other's hair for an extra carton of milk. 3. On Morocco Beach, a monster truck backs into the water. Under the truck's wheels, broken turtle eggs. 4. A mob surrounds a meat truck, beats its sides like a piñata. Someone yells, "Para todos, the barrio will eat today." 5. Naked bodies on the concrete floor, the morgue workers swing and toss, no black bags, no electricity, no tags. 6. A worker lifts a wilted boy from a pyramid of flesh, 7 black holes in his chest. The father touches each one, 7, spits out his pain. A mother comes to identify her oldest son and finds her youngest among the ruins. 8. What is police brutality? Asks the 5-year-old. In the news, a young man's ghost outlined in chalk. The father turns 9, the TV off. A revolution is not televised, but broadcast in hues of red. A t-shirt, a beret, a heart, 10, stuttering mid-sentence, scattering pomegranate seeds into the earth. It looks like blood, somebody says. 11, it's not, an officer responds, holstering his conscience. The evidence is in the pit. All right, so switching gears again. This poem is for anyone whose name has been mispronounced or butchered in a variety of ways. Father Lengua. Thank you. My father speaks English with peros and hitos. His pointer fingers cross one on top of the other to push away mal de ojo. His right hand quickly makes the sign of the cross. He's a master in lip pointing, mouth puckering towards an object or person, no need for translation. I tell him he's a polyglot. His body speaks where words fail. People comment on his accent, mispronounce his name, call him ex-savior as if he had fallen from grace and could not be redeemed. Xavier, he says, over and over. It's Basque, but they think Basque is a painter. When I buy him coffee, I take the cup from the barista's hands and write his name as many times as it takes for all to see. Anyone afraid of cockroaches? So I lived in this place when I was little. It was like full of cockroaches. So my mother was always, spraying around or whatever, cleaning 55 times a day. And I was trying to reconcile that experience with, who I am today. I didn't know how to. So I started writing this poem. It was about mice first, I'm not sure why. And then I finally was able to enter into the cockroach world. So this is Katsarida phobia, which is fear of cockroaches. It wasn't so much the smell of rancid oil, but how they starred the ceiling, many-legged nightmares falling on our beds. If I paid attention, I could see their constellations shifting. I called them Azabache, Canela, Luna, Lucero, like the horses we rode at the farm. Tame, familiar. Mama scolded me for not killing them, but the sound of death is not meant for every ear. How many times did I panic when wings smacked my body, when legs skittered up an arm or a leg? The only time I stepped on a roach, the scene repeated in my head like a horror film. I kept looking at the corpse, unnerved by the spasms. It's easier to run, brush the fear away, but maybe I should have asked them, what is my name? Okay. So I'm going to move into what I call my tender poems. And this is a series of postcard poems. They're short poems, 5 of them. And I wrote them during the pandemic, thinking about not just isolation during that time, but, how many folks feel isolated in general, and how many folks feel that they have been displaced from their communities, from their places of origin every single day. So these are postcards from everywhere and nowhere. Dear cousin, I just landed. At the airport, a picture of a ship crowning a wave. A figure on the prow waits, like you on the tarmac, looking somewhere ahead. I waved and you did not wave back. Maybe you couldn't see me. Dear cousin, I chant, I'm home every day. How many times will it take to feel it? The monarchs are starting to cocoon. Do you know if, when they transform, they forget their past? Dear cousin, papers are important in this land. My neighbor told me about Chinese paper sons who invented new identities so they could stay. I think of the paper dolls we played with, how we unfolded each tab of the wedding dress and turned it into confetti. Dear cousin, what happens when your genetic code is grafted in 2 languages? Does it mean the patterns never stop shifting? Yesterday, we had an earthquake in San Diego, and I heard the earth grinding its teeth, as if to speak. Dear cousin, my son asked if citizen is a foreign word. I was tempted to say yes. I told him there was once a city whose people were not alien. They belonged. Oh, so where do we belong? He asked. Water rituals. Abuelas bury a husk like the corn we wash, dehair, and cook for hours. River water, she says, for the baptism. Her child dead at 7 from malaria. Abuela, a nurse, couldn't save him. River water, she says, again and again. She wants to wear her navy blue polyester dress for the baptism. When we were children, we baptized our dolls with holy water. Now all we have is a ghost child, and we play, dress Abuela up, rub camphor oil on her skin, her arms and face polished slick as a river stone. How am I doing on time, Stacey?
You got time for one long one or a couple of short ones?
Perfect. So I'll read a couple of short ones.
I mean, I would prefer to have you go on all night long, but
Oh, I know. It's okay. Well, I'm glad you're keeping time because I'm trying to count and read.
I said
Wait, what?
I am buying everything you're selling.
All right, so I wrote this poem for my brother because we used to fight all the time, but we never apologized to each other, even though my mother asked us to. We kind of went, and then forget it. So I sent him a copy of the book and I was like, okay, you need to read this poem on page 53. And that was it. That was my my apology. It's called Apology in Blue. And it's for my brother Alejandro. Mama said I had to love you, take care of you, look out for you. I became a river current cutting through rock, unbridled. When we tugged on a threadbare rope, I yanked and let go, knowing you'd fall. I wanted to hurt the blue of you I couldn't have, the one she said wasn't meant for me because girls don't dream in blue. I didn't anticipate the cut on the back of your head, your screams, Mama's hands reeking of peroxide, the rusty trace of blood. She didn't understand why our bodies repelled each other, why I couldn't love you like she did. I longed to say it was not about love, but that every patch of blue is an ocean. And I'm gonna leave you with bedtime stories. Every witch moth has a pact with death. All night she soars towards light, until paralyzed by pleasure, she plummets, bending gravity around the center of her own galaxy. In the stories, bat-shaped wings, the color of the devil's dreams, deprive children of sight. In the morning, a mother finds the witch moth's body splayed as if waiting to be read. There's something satisfying about open endings, like the story I made up, where you and I find an eagle's feather and graze its barb, fingers flushed with the promise of flight. Thank you.
You all open up your mics and throw this lady some roses. Leonora, that was absolutely fierce and fantastic and everything I've ever known you to do. Tell us again about the event that's coming up where you're reading live in San Diego.
So I am reading with a couple more poets on Wednesday, February, so next Wednesday is the 23rd, I believe, at Verbatim Books in North Park.
If you will send me that information, I'll go ahead and post it on the website
Perfect. I
and
think
on our
I can,
page.
yeah.
Send it to me later.
Okay.
It's fine. For those of you who just joined us, this will be available as all of our interviews on our YouTube channel. You can also, if you are so inclined, stay around for our next show, which is an open mic, which will start in approximately 5-10 minutes. Guest there is another Tesoro woman, Shaki G. But Leonora, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this reading because, again, I say this I never get to hear you all except in like 5-minute bits and bytes, and to be able to hear you for a solid half hour is absolutely fantastic for me and for everybody listening. So thank you again. If whoever sees this, hears this, wants to donate to our flow, go to PayPal, look up poetswind@hotmail.com. Anything that you donate, 90% goes to the artist because the artists need to get paid. 10% comes back to Tesoro to keep the lights on. So I'm going to go ahead and say, as I say every week, I have no idea where everybody is in the world. I'm not fooling with time zones anymore. I'm just going to say, have a fantastic, whatever season of the day it is for you. Leonora, can't talk now. Leonora, don't. I know. Thank you so much, honey. We really appreciate it.
Thank
you. You have an
you.
absolutely fantastic weekend, okay?
Thank you. You too.